Give me a second. Beautiful. All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the February 8th meeting for the Recreation Commission. And thank you to anybody who may be watching on the live stream. I don't know that there will be, but if you are, welcome. So, all right. First things first, call to order. I've got it at 6:33, and it looks like we have all of the commission members with the exception of Chris Rommelin. And we have no other guests currently at the moment. So all other commission members are accounted for. Right. Can I pass off the meeting minutes to you, Dana, to approve them?
Sure. Did everybody get the January 11th minutes and have a chance to read them?
Yep.
All right. Does anybody have any questions, comments, changes, suggestions, etc.?
None from me.
Nope. All right. Can we get a motion to approve the minutes for January 11th, 2022?
I'll make
I will
the
make-
Motion to accept as read.
Who's
All right, we
this?
got
Oh,
Dan.
Bob.
I saw
So-
Dan raise his hand first, so I'm gonna go with Dan in a second.
Go
You
ahead,
can't do
Bob.
both, Dan. Ed, okay.
Just ready.
Sure.
All in favor?
Yep. Aye.
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 All right, and Rachel wasn't at the last meeting, so we're gonna do that as an abstain. Correct. All right, so DC, SG, PB. All right, I'm good.
Thank you very much. So I circulated some stuff earlier tonight, the facility use requests, and I just wanted to kind of put this out there and give some backstory. So in November, any of the leagues that had worked with us in the past, that was literally the only criteria that they'd submitted to use the field in the past. We held an open meeting at the library flat out, and it was really more of a working group. Meeting's not the right term. I was the only Recreation Commission member there, and said at the beginning that I was purely there to help try and streamline the process for figuring out where we would or would not have conflicts, because that might be useful for this coming year not to have that problem. And the document that I circulated is what was agreed upon by all of the leagues. So I just want to commend them for going through it and handling what could have been a really just inherently contentious conversation in a really, really positive way. So huge kudos to them for working through this. I'm going to suggest that instead of voting on these right now, that we actually table this and do a separate field use meeting. And the reason I'm going to say that is there were one or two other individuals, organizations that did not submit or did not ask, but may be interested in this. And what I'd like to do, I also was not able to reconnect with all of the leagues just to double check on this. They've seen it. I sent this out to them in November, so it's not like it's been a surprise, but just in full fairness and transparency, I'd love to have just a quick rec meeting later on this month just to approve these if people might be up for it. I don't think it's going to be super long. It would be the only agenda item on here, but what do folks think about doing that?
Sounds like a good idea.
Yep, great idea.
Okay, so with that being said, want to look at potentially throwing out some dates. It could be as soon as next Tuesday, which is the 15th. It could be Tuesday, the 22nd, or even the 24th, which is that Thursday. Does anything come up with a conflict for anybody on this call?
Next Tuesday, I'm good.
I'm good anytime.
Yeah,
Dan?
Tuesday.
I'm good except for Mondays or Wednesdays.
Dan?
The 15th's good for me. 22nd, no.
Okay. And then Rachel, are you available on the 15th?
I'm pretty sure I would be available on any of those days.
All right, cool. So let's target the 15th for just a field use approval meeting. And I'm going to put out a public announcement to folks that if anybody is interested to please submit. It's got to be in, let's see, today is 8th, so the meeting has to be in by the end of this week. So I will reach out to everybody and just let them know that we're going to be reconvening next week. Couple things that did come up when we were going through it is that we're looking to try and use the field down on Hooper Street again. And there was a question about whether that would drain properly and also with regards to like parking. But it did seem like there might be an option there. And potentially looking at like, I think field hockey was the league that was looking at maybe using that. We're talking about if we could put some sort of storage shed there. That's like a common theme that we heard is having some more storage facilities. So just something to be aware of. Cool. So we will table facility use requests until the 15th. On the partner working group reports, I did reach out to Dave Paul. I have not heard any, I did not get a report from him. So this particular time, I'm going to move past that. Unless anybody has any objection.
Nope.
On here.
All right. Open space, Brian James sends his regrets, but he's in Florida enjoying sunny weather. And what he said is that they are due to submit the grant. They got it approved by the town council, the ability to move forward at the last town council meeting, and had asked for a letter of support from the Recreation Commission to move forward to that just as part of the process. So I don't know that this necessarily requires a formal vote in this case, but I was going to write one for them. He's been to a bunch of meetings. I think we're all fairly familiar with what they're doing and how it could benefit us down at Fogland. So any objections to me writing a letter of support for their?
None.
None.
None whatsoever.
Okay. All right. I see Chris popping in, so I'm trying to see.
I am here. It's a little connection issues with my laptop. Looks like it's on the laptop now.
Hey, Chris.
Hello,
Hi.
Chris.
I'm gonna
Hey,
turn
Chris.
off-
Chris, I don't know if you heard, we're gonna table the facility use requests until the 15th. Just gonna use that meeting specifically for that purpose to get those cleared up next week. So nothing big. From the town farm standpoint, I wanted to do just a really brief show and tell. And I do mean brief. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is from the DEM grant that we had to submit to the state. We have to submit one every 6 months. I want to show two separate images. This is the rendering of how the security systems will play out at Town Farm, and this will be implemented by the time we get to next summer. So Chief Jones is taking point on and is working to help us get it put together. But you can see where the camera angles will be. The one thing that I would note is on the left-hand side of the screen here, there's one arrow that goes directly sort of off into the corner, and that angle was put in, I believe, specifically at the request of soccer because their shed keeps getting, the lock keeps getting broken. So we're trying to put additional coverage, but we get good coverage of the playground, good coverage of the fields, and hopefully nobody else decides to do donuts out there.
Yep.
If anybody's interested in seeing this, please let me know. I'll happily share a copy of it. But the only other image that I did want to show in here, fast forward, is this one, which is a draft image and still needs to go through significant vetting for it.
Look at that.
What we're looking at is the idea of how do we create a better layout for parking and potentially move. So down at the bottom here, this is all where the grassy area is. And so one of the things that we're still looking at is, are there any ordinances or variances that we have to be aware of for moving the road to that side? But we do think that there are a couple of volunteers that would be willing to help us essentially clear that out. And where you see yellow, we would look at putting some sort of post or a fence or some sort of line that would differentiate between the two. So you wouldn't deal with kids running into a traffic pattern. And obviously the width of it, we'd want to make sure it's big enough not to preclude anybody that's going to or from the landfill. So this is kind of what we're looking at. The idea of bringing together pickleball and the tennis courts was one that seemed to resonate with the town farm committee. And then also having the sitting area, and you can see where the fitness area is up at the top. So
That's
it's
nice.
not, yeah, the fitness area is exactly what we talked about before. And I think, Chris, you were actually the one that brought up the suggestion of putting it all together in one of our meetings.
Yeah, it's not, it's a, down where the welcome sign is, you know, what you could do is you could actually have a little, a break there and put in some like cedar trees, something that's sturdy, and it'll be like, kind of like a fence without being a fence, and have it go almost to the breakdown, you know, wherever people turn into the driveway. Get the garden club involved. They'd love to do a little planting, you know, the native species.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that. I did speak with some members of the garden club, and they were raising questions about the maintenance of Grinnell's, because they've been very kindly down there doing it, especially in the seagrass. We didn't talk about this project, but I do think there's an opportunity to re-engage them on stuff like this.
Yeah, because they'd be losing their flower bed out there. It looks like their flower bed disappeared. But
Well,
it could
and
be repositioned.
yeah, and to be honest, like that area could either remain as it is, or it could get adjusted. I don't know that there's it could also be where the toy car that's down here that we want to retain, it could end up moving down here, or it could live somewhere else. Like there's a lot of
Yeah, right.
possibilities for that kind of stuff. And then we also left the house there knowing that this could end up being public restrooms. So depending on what the septic's like, or this could be an area where we apply for a future grant to do compostable toilets.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, somehow I lost Bob in this. He's back in. So anyway,
Hey,
so
Stu,
that's
check a text.
okay. Gotcha.
So Stu, quick question for you.
Yep.
I know you're really good with, I know you're great with your graphics. Did you put a bunch of little fake cars in there to see how many parking spaces you get?
Haven't gone down that road yet. And when we start to actually spec it out, we would figure out what the actual capacity for parking is. One of the things we wanted to look at is that right now, in general, it's just really poorly laid out. People end up cutting through all over the place, and wanted to kind of figure out, I don't know, how to make it better. So we don't have a direct number yet, but as we go forward, we will.
Yeah, it would be good. It would be good to see what the expansion could be. Looks great though.
Well, and just one thing to note is, remember at the bottom where that driveway is, right now that's a grassy area, and it's there's no parking there really. So just by the nature of adjusting into that footprint, we're actually expanding the space. So there would be more. I couldn't tell you exactly how much, but I would imagine it's a pretty large number. But cool. So that's my town farm renovation committee report. Anybody have any questions?
Looks great.
Very good.
Very nice.
All right, thank you. I put a note on here, I started adding a line for town council, and that's purely, I realize there's no direct open spot where the town council can give us feedback on what's happening. I did say to Mike Burke that I'm not expecting a report. It's just there, kind of like everything else, if he's here and wants to share something. So for what that's worth. All right. Treasurer's report. Rachel, could I hand it over to you?
Sure. A formal report to share with you guys, but there were very actions from my report for this one. We just had a reimbursement costs associated with the tree lighting. But this is a pretty low time of year for us as far as expenses.
I did circulate the account activity if anybody had a chance to take a look at it and had any questions. Rachel, one thing we've talked about in prior meetings was the need to potentially reallocate or transfer funds from one account to another. And I don't need that. I don't know that we need it right now, but for the next agenda item, could I ask you to take a look at what your recommendations are for us to do the formal vote? I know we've kind of talked about it, but I'd like to vote on it. To be able to move some things if we can.
Absolutely.
Sorry, your mic cut out there. Your phone cut out.
Yes, sorry about that.
DJ Rachel.
So yes, I'll be happy to put that together with a formal recommendation. I do think it's a good idea for us to vote whenever we're transferring.
Well, I think we actually have to vote. I know the town council is that we missed most of what you said. We were actually making a lot of like remix and DJ jokes while you were doing it. But we got the yes, which is appreciated. So let me know if you want to connect on some of that before we get to the next meeting.
Do you want to try to log in on another platform?
Okay. Yep, I'll keep an eye out on the participant piece, so I can let you in.
Sounded like one of those new things we had at Town Farm. One of those new swings had that little sound to it.
Yeah,
Little spring.
Yeah.
Only other note I would put up for the treasurer's report is that we have, because of where we are in our budget cycle, there's some things that we haven't expended funds for yet. Like we were looking at for new towers for the lifeguards was one place. And I think at the next meeting, I'm going to bring forward a few requests for expenditures just within it. That may dovetail based on where we transfer funds to and from. So just a heads up. If there's anything in particular in any of your working groups or spaces that you're aware of that we should be including in that, please let me know in advance of our next meeting, at least a week in advance, so that we can put together some information to share with the rest of the commission. So, Chris?
One thing we were thinking, and Dana and I have not connected entirely yet, but I think we're on the same wavelength, is some type of food truck night with a little bit of music down the beaches, maybe Wednesdays, think in July and August. And the bands, I looked at a few, like kind of guitarists, not like big bands, couple $100, $200, $300 kind of deal. If we want to do that kind of thing, we would need that, whatever frequency we do it 4 times, 6 times, 8 times, 1 time. Food trucks are free, and I'm getting ahead of a little bit, but that's one thing that may be a lean on the budget. Might be like a winter recreation thing, $2,500, $3,000 for entertainment. Just for some low key stuff. It's the only thing I'm thinking of. Thinking ahead. Dana, you good?
I'm good.
You might also get, I bet you there are a couple of businesses in town that would love to sponsor that. Like I keep thinking about
Absolutely.
days in that space.
Yep. Yeah, I mentioned the fireworks to a few people and they were pretty pumped. There's definitely some money that was mentioned. But I would agree, I think we can get some sponsorships there. But I think a little bit, from the town, just in case, we don't get it or we don't get what we think we're going to get, we could cover it and not be like a liability, because it's sort of like getting Santa Claus and you can't pay him.
Yeah.
Bad mojo.
Bad mojo.
Definitely bad karma. Yeah, well, and I think it's going to be interesting to look at, like, how much could we, based on where we are, how much can we use out of this year's budget against it versus like what's in for next year, because we're not going to be able to know on that one until we get later. But yeah, I'm totally game. I love the idea of us starting to do more recreational stuff down on the beaches.
Yeah,
that's
right.
huge.
Okay.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Any other general comments on budget? All right. I did not get any public comments or any requests to speak, so we're going to keep moving on that. Just a note on the working group updates before we jump into it, because there were a couple of folks that weren't here. So where we ended last meeting was I'm trying to connect with Chris Cotta about the spring break STEM camp, because I wanted to talk to him about that and a lot of stuff before moving forward. I think we're still aiming probably for like April break. Is that right? So that's still on the cards to try and nail down before going to the school to get that done. But the 3 areas that were really the pain points for us, or the focal points for us, is probably a better way to put it. Events, summer camp, and beaches. And so Rachel and Ed, the outcome of the last meeting is we all sort of divided and conquered on them. So where we ended up is that Dana and Chris took over events. Dan and I believe he was going to reach out to you, Rachel, about trying to do summer camp stuff. And then Ed and I were going to take on beaches, and then also probably lean on Bob for some feedback as we get going on it. Bob very graciously said, look, I've done my term, and he has, but we'll probably ask him for feedback on, what he thinks we should be looking at in a couple of different areas. So, and we'll probably pull you in, Bob, in other areas, maybe to tame purple or pink chickens. You never know, like could be anything. No, don't go there. I don't know where you're going.
That is the thing.
I'm being good tonight.
A fundraiser is flocking. I think they call it flocking, right?
Yeah.
With the pink flamingos on people's lawns.
Yeah.
No, I just love that I said pink chicken and Bob smiled and his hand went down. I'm like, no.
No.
I'm going to be good tonight.
Love you,
So
Bob.
fun.
Cool. So where we left off is I was looking for folks coming into this meeting to potentially have sort of updates on what's transpired, if you've had abilities to connect, or kind kind of push it forward. I recognize it's a busy time of year.
Mhm.
I do also want to offer, it's February, it's going to be June before we know it. So
Oh, yeah.
we're already running out of time. So
Yes.
just as an open group, any feedback, any updates? Has anybody been able to kind of move the needle so far?
So I'll say Dana and I have not connected yet, but we're on the same wavelength, and we will connect within the next week or so. But I did look into the food truck thing, Rhode Island Food Truck. They have a whole website. I reached out to them to try to get a list. So hopefully next meeting I can get a list. We can kind of look at what those things are. I've also reached out to some local acts through the guy who owns Locals up there, because he has guys come in and play, and it's low key stuff. It's going to be a budget because I've never hired a musician before, and it's fairly reasonable. So I'm hoping to get some kind of budget, and Dana and I'll put that together. The bigger thing I think we have to work on is if we're going to do that, take over that Tiverton Days event, and what that would look like. Of course, everything changes, Stu, when we get our money for fireworks. Then it's really good. I haven't
Hey,
heard if that got approved or not, but who knows,
Whatever
right?
happened with the licensing for food trucks with that?
Yeah, so we put together the procedural documents to get people approved, and then it turned out that we don't have the right to issue any permits. It has to go through the town council.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we also don't collect money. So one of the things that town council that I discussed with them last year was really just trying to streamline the process. So essentially, application comes in, it gets approved, and then just gets sent off to us to schedule locations that are recreation related. Like we don't
Mhm.
deal with anything other than that. So I think that some of the framework for that's in place and probably could be put together quickly, but haven't been able to follow up with them this year so far.
So the good news is that, with that association they had, that Rhode Island Food Truck Association, those guys were all like sort of vetted, and they've already gone to other towns. So it's not like we've got somebody who's brand new to the business. They've got all the licensing, they've got everything they need through the state. And then that's for us to pick. But I'm only focusing on that Brunel's Beach right now. If somebody wants to go somewhere else, it's a different deal. I'm just focused on some sort of event midweek, Wednesday night food truck and music, for a few weeks, and have guys cycle through. If they want to go beyond that, then we can deal with that as a separate decision,
Yeah, I know when we hired Melissa last year, she actually also brought up the idea of doing like a sandcastle contest down on the beaches at one point.
Ooh, I like that.
Not to add necessarily more to your plate, but I do feel like
I like that.
there's an opportunity to like leverage some of her enthusiasm and really good ideas to piggyback off of what you guys are thinking and see how it's kind of come together. I mean, I feel like we've spent the last couple of years kind of laying the groundwork to be able to do some of the stuff we want to do here. So let's do it. Let's come up with some fun stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm optimistic about the fireworks. A little nervous, but we'll see if it comes together.
Yeah.
Just on the beaches, Ed and I haven't had a chance to connect, but I will say that I've gone through and reviewed where we are with supplies and the med kits from last year, and have determined like kind of what we need to replenish those. I've got a list of all the staff that we had for last year on the beaches, and I'm gonna start reaching out to them about it. And there's a couple, Melissa and I talked actually about some lifeguard training that we're gonna try and see if we can compile. The only other element is Jim Farrell from Little Compton very kindly had sent me, I just got real blurry. I'll come back. Had very kindly sent me his junior lifeguard program, and I'm going to see if we can maybe build that, because what he said is he's run that every single year and it's kept him from needing to hire lifeguards because he just replenishes them. So yeah, I think there's something pretty cool there, and we may end up needing to hire for that particular role. But again, just sort of in the planning phase. And then Ed, why don't you and I try to get together next week for a couple of minutes? When are you back?
All right. Yeah, another thing too, I was just thinking on real quick, like a couple of contractors I know, I'm going to ask them if they can build the chairs. Whether they do it or not, meaning supplying the supplies, I don't know that supplying the supplies, but I don't know what the cost would be. I can find out the cost of material for the lifeguard chair. Now, the question I would have real fast, like not getting off track, is do we want to do this for the longevity of, I don't want to say lifetime chairs, but you can put wood together and all of a sudden 15 years we need new ones. Or they have that a lot of decking. Folks put this, I don't know what you call it. I've been out of the contractor business for years, but it's, what is it, Dana?
Trex?
No, it's very light product, but it withstands the weather. And
Yeah, well, Trex is just the name brand. They have all off brands
Yeah.
too.
and I mean, that's expensive, but at the same token, I'll ask for labor. If you don't ask, you don't know. So there's a couple of contractors that I mentioned it to, and that was like, yeah, that was during the winter, but which we're still in. But I'll revisit that, and let's see where we come up with the chairs, because we need new chairs. We do. There's no doubt about it.
Yep. I apologize. I was just pulling up on my other screen, chairs and looking at them. And so I think the question is like, how tall do they need to be? Because there's different
Right.
types.
Yes.
I
I mean, we want the lifeguards in the chairs with folks in the water, not down bottom, looking at the sand level and not seeing a head go underwater. You know what I mean? It's just nuts.
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Weren't we looking into getting some heavy duty, like plastic lifeguard chairs last year? I think from Uline or something.
Yeah, and I think that's what Ed's talking about, if I'm not mistaken, is and I think we're all like kind of dancing around what the name of it is, but I feel like I was just trying to find the number, somewhere around like $2,000 for lifeguard chairs, figuring that would probably cover a couple of them. But Bob, Ed, why don't you and I figure out what's in there? Bob, I'll put you on that email too,
right.
and we'll come up with something that seems like it might work.
Because
Very
I mean, nothing for nothing, but you look at the price of wood today, and then the labor to build the chairs and stuff. It might be more cost efficient to maybe go with something like that. I mean, just something to look into. I know we looked into it a little bit last year, but we didn't get far with it.
Yeah, the only thing with the Trex type stuff, that composite, is that I mean, I guess it's like wood. You can carve into it. You just can't really sand it down. But yeah, I'm fine with that. Let's get something that's gonna last.
Another thing with that though, too, is that it does retain the heat. It gets pretty hot, or it can. So we got to be careful with that as well.
Trex, that's right, Dana. It does. Yeah, it gets hot.
Well, we can put cushions.
Well, and
You
I think
put a
the other
cushion
part
on
is
your chair.
we're gonna want to look at putting some sort of canopy over the top of it too,
Yep.
to keep
All
them
right.
directly out of the
Yes.
sun, which hopefully will help.
Okay,
You know?
but that's true. I mean, it does retain heat.
Mhm.
Good. That'll make them go in the water and do their job.
So all I will say is my hope is with that we have all of our lifeguard selection, or at least
Yep.
most of it, set by April. I don't want to go much further than that. And that's February right now. So hoping to wrap this up, or at least get moving on it in the next couple of weeks, because it was tough last year. So. And then Dan, any comments, thoughts on summer camp? I know you and I were trying to connect before and hadn't been able to. But I think I lost Dan. You there, Dan?
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
See me?
Yes.
Sorry, I lost you for a second. So can I jump in on summer camps?
Yeah, please.
So I was able to move the needle on a few things. I spoke with Kate, who's helping us last year, and just wanted to at least start by just making a connection and getting some feedback about last year, what went well, what didn't. A lot of the things we'd already talked about afterwards. So she had some feedback about what she thought would really make this year better, more engaging. A lot about just taking an inventory of the supplies, mostly the arts and crafts, like the games. She mentioned that a lot of it was either mismatched, old. So having some newer or better quality games, art supplies would go a long way. She felt like the same thing for some of the sports equipment. Just having some newer things or like new nothing crazy. I think that small asks, but she thought that it would go a long way with the kids and just bring in a higher level of engagement and enjoyment. She mentioned some specifics about the water day. I know we talked about that. There was some issue getting access to the water. It was a strange spot, like hard to get to. So I think some pre-planning around that to make sure that there's easy access for what she's thinking, and she was willing to put the work in as far as the planning ahead. The kids' feedback, she was talking about a lot of what she was saying about the kids, really into the arts and crafts, the hands-on games, and how they just wanted some newer materials. But also one of the big things that came out was field trips, and even if it was to the beach. So we don't know what reality is going to look like in the summer. Hopefully, it's in a spot we can actually go take a group of kids to another location on a bus or on vans. I was telling Kate that it's probable if we're in that type of reality. And I think she even mentioned a few examples. One being the zoo. I do have some connections in New Bedford, so I could probably help facilitate a zoo trip for very little cost, and maybe even the transportation too. So I think if we could squeeze in like a field trip or two local, that would go a long way. So that was kind of the extent of our conversation, was just a little feedback from about last year. But she was excited to come back, and she was looking to just make it a better experience for the kids. Then in the other area I was thinking about is really talking to this committee about if we can expand, and if so, how much, because I've got a couple ideas. One being, I was able to connect with, so in New Bedford, we work with community boating in New Bedford. Stu, I know you're familiar. So I talked with some of the guys there, Greg Pimentel especially, and he does a great job with my school and some schools in New Bedford, and he was pretty confident that he could expand that where they could run a camp either here in Tiverton, or we could get kids from Tiverton over there again for little cost over to New Bedford to have a nice camp experience with community boating. They do an awesome job. I know, Stu, but not only just for everyone to know, not only do they work on sailing and the recreation camp on the water, but they actually teach the kids how to build boats and the boat maintenance skills, and they even offer job opportunities to kids as young as 14. And again, all those perks will be part of what they could offer to our kids. So if we can expand, that would be I think a nice piece. So, I'm going to meet with him and his boss actually on Thursday, just about some New Bedford stuff, and kind of dip into this too. So I wanted to kind of bring that up now. And then just along the lines of sports, I talked with the camp and league coordinator over at Longplex, and they've really slashed their well, a couple of things. They've really reduced the leagues that they offer at Longplex. They only offer a handful now, where they used to offer a lot. So I was thinking, since it looks like some of the leagues that they do not offer anymore are basketball, tennis, and time-wise with pickleball, I was thinking about, can we potentially run leagues or camps with those sports, because they've really been cut there, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to run camps through what we're doing. And even talking to parents too, like the camps at Longplex, they're still offering this summer, but they're costly. They're only 1 week long. They're $250, $260 a week. A lot of the parents that I've spoken to, it's too much. You have to commit to the week, full days. I was thinking that we could potentially expand and have some shorter, more flexible sports camps offerings using our fields. Again, sports like basketball, tennis, flag football, and if we can, I think I could help maybe identify some staff for that. So that's another thing. And one last thing was, again, going back to New Bedford, I've got a lot of teachers that, we offer summer school and summer camps, but it's very, very limited. And every single year I have teachers that are looking for summer camp, for some pay, and more along the lines of like the unified arts. So like STEM, STEAM, robotics, art, performing arts, music, band, instrumental. These teachers consistently, they're my best teachers, young, energy, love kids, and they just can't get that job. And if we could provide some sort of camp along those lines, I'm pretty sure I can have, a good number of qualified educators that are chomping at the bit to get to it, So that's about it.
That's awesome, Dan.
Very good.
Yeah, nice work.
Yeah, thanks.
Stu,
So
are you
it's a lot, but I mean, it's just some ideas.
Stu, are you able to hear me?
I can, yes.
Not a DJ anymore?
Nope, I can hear you.
All right, excellent. Dan, great work. That's a ton of really good information. As you were going through that and talking about potentially field trips for the parks program next year, my thought would be, let's move forward planning the trip. And if we have to, we cancel it. This past year, there was money in the account for transportation that we never used because it just seemed like it took too long by the time we started talking about a field trip and pulling it together. So that's happened to us before, where we almost wait until camp is up and running and then start thinking about field trips. So my thoughts would be to work with our parks coordinator. I don't know if we're still keeping, I think it was Kate for next year, but let's plan something. And there is currently a budget. I know that budget is part of what we want to move for other things like lifeguard chairs. But I would anticipate, and certainly I would request, that our next budget also have that same fund for transportation. So, you've got a lot of great ideas and things. And I think if we try to put something together and plan it before it's too late, we should be able to make that happen.
Dan, just to add to your list of field trips that they've gone on, or that they used to go to Water Whiz. They've done that. Lake Canopy, they've done that in the past. They've gone to the movies in Fall River. That was kind of like a half day thing. They've been to the zoo, which they used to go to Roger Williams, but Buttonwood is a beautiful zoo as well. I'm trying to think of anything else. I think those are like the major ones that they pretty much went on every year. I mean, because my kids went from they were 6 until they aged. Well, my daughter still worked there, so it's been ongoing every year.
Nice. All right.
So just a couple of, I love the community boating New Bedford connection. Those guys are great. I will say I had conversations with them last year about trying to run a windsurfing camp down at Fogland. And I also had conversations with the Tiverton Yacht Club about it. Both were interested. The pain point we ran into was the storage of equipment, because there wasn't really any security for it. And so we didn't really know how to make that work. But we talked through it and we were like, well, let's revisit this next year. So love the direction it's going. And if you want the connection at Tiverton Yacht Club, or you want to talk about how to bus people out there, I think either way, it's we've got a phenomenal waterfront activity option.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way to do the storage is the way they do it at Third Beach. You get a small box container and lock it up, and then you can use it year after year. So depending upon how we do Fogland and how that lays out where the bathrooms are, they may be able to tuck it behind on the sand dune north side, and it's not visible. Then you can actually use that also for storage for the guys. Anything needed on the beach. Wintertime, you can put chairs in it. And those containers right now, they're expensive, but usually you can get the shorter ones. I think they're the pup size. You can get them usually for $1,500, or even get them donated from people.
What I'm wondering is exactly that. What would be the issues we run into if we tried to put 2 of those in the place where the playground is? Other than CRMC maybe getting upset, is there anyone else that we'd have to really worry about? Because I think that's a really good way to go at it.
It's a good way to store anything down there. Yeah. I don't think the CRMC would be opposed to it. If it can go on the other side, it's even better because they don't even see it when you drive up.
Well, that side for the windsurfing was actually the area I think they were looking at for part of it. I know we were talking about trying to do paddleboard and then also do windsurfing. And some of the
Yeah.
equipment is actually multi-purpose. So like you can paddle in the morning. Actually, one of the most popular programs I've ever seen is it's a yoga in the morning on paddleboards.
Yeah.
It's like it's a mom's class. Like every program I've ever been to, you have lots of moms that come down and do it. Just that seems to be the demographic.
No goats though.
No goats. No, I would be in favor
A
of
goat
goats.
on a paddleboard doing yoga.
Cool,
I
cool.
do.
No.
One of the things I did want to mention too is that a few years back when Matt was I think that was his name when he was
Matt.
the town administrator. One of the things that he had talked about when we were talking about the summer camps was with transportation was that the senior center has a bus there that they do not use. And I'm not even sure how big this bus is. I assume it's a small bus, not a full-size bus, but they have something. So, maybe that is something we could work out with the senior center where if we needed to transport kids down to the beach or something, we could take, advantage because I guess they have it. I don't know if they have a driver all the time or like he said, we'd have to look into the details, but that was in my mind that we could, maybe use that as well.
That's a great idea. That's the one that I think the police chief helped get with a grant. And you're absolutely right. Like I've heard it's being used, just there's definitely opportunity. I mean, yeah, I love that idea.
I'll drive it.
Yeah, you
I'll
and
drive
Joe.
it.
Ed and Joe.
I got the CDL license. I'll drive it. So does Joe.
Yeah, it's actually not a bad idea.
Shotgun. I'll take shotgun.
Take your life into your hands.
That's right.
Shotgun, Dan.
I can see them all like Wayne's World, like
Yeah.
singing Bohemian Rhapsody.
Dan, just from a marching order standpoint, can you because anything that we do that requires us to really charge fees that we haven't done previously, I believe has to get approved by the town council. So the idea of doing field trip slate, I think if you can just put together what the ideas would be and ballpark numbers for what it would cost, and then with summer camp, I think I can send you all the documentation we used before based on date range. And if Kate's agreeing to come back, rather than giving her 2 days to prep for summer, giving her several months, I'd love to see what she could do.
Yeah.
All right, sure. Yep. We'll stay connected, she and I, and I'll get you those figures soon.
One other camp that you might want to take a look at, and we were looking at this pre-pandemic, is we have some incredible hiking trails in Tiverton. And if there's an opportunity to get 2 teachers who have a background in either just science, general science, or ecology, and get them to do kids eco programming through those, even also down on the beaches, I think you'd see I was really close to trying to get somebody from Audubon to come work with us. But if you have a pool of teachers that man, I'd love to do that.
Oh yeah, that shouldn't be a problem.
Or something like that
Okay.
too. You might
Yep.
want to reach out to the land trust people because they usually do hikes and they have people come in to give narrated hikes at all the trails in Tiverton.
That's cool.
I've actually gone on a couple myself and they were super informative and amazing.
I didn't even know that. Nice Joe. Awesome. Mike Burke would be probably a good contact for the land trust, Dan, if you want.
All right.
And so again, just sort of marching orders wise, if you and Rachel can connect and then sort of just frame it out between the next meeting, because what we'll do is we'll approve it and then move it forward to get in front of the town council. We don't need all the details, just what are we doing and what would the cost potentially be? And Ed, you and I need to do the same thing. We got to nail down what we're doing for our marching orders. So.
Got it.
So.
Done.
Cool. All right. Awesome.
Did you? I know this is off speak, but to let everyone know that the town council approved the 2 offices with the grant. Awesome.
Hey, Joe Perry.
What's that?
I said, hey, Joe Perry.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, there he is. Hey,
I
Joe.
just got off a meeting with the school committee, so we had 2 meetings tonight, this one in school committee, council.
Welcome to the fun meeting.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, Joe, we were just talking about sort of some working group updates and events, summer camp, beaches, really kind of putting pieces in motion. So
And we've got you, Ed, and Dan driving a bus in the summer. Hope you're good with that.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm there, no problem. I'm there.
Now that'll be a good trip right there. Yep.
on the anything else on working groups before we keep moving? No, not hearing any. General business. I actually am going to table this one, which is not a reflection of the fact that I don't want to talk about it. I'm just not ready yet. Put a lot of the pieces in place, but it's just not quite there yet. The conversation we had before, and Bob, thank you, by the way, for sending me on various occasions examples of golf carts and where I can buy them if we decide to start hunting for them.
'Cause that's going to be in the budget too, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Like, I keep expecting to find golf carts that have like chickens driving them. I really do. I don't. So at any rate, yeah, no, I think there's a couple of things that have to get sorted out with the budget before we can know what we're going to do with that. But I will have some sort of guidelines for us for the next full meeting. And just I apologize, I did not get to them this time. So the only other thing that I have on this under new business, I did want to share something that I don't think we had shown people before. And it's a tentative Tiverton Recreation website.
Oh, nice.
It would have field use requests, info about beaches, calendar of events, then a section on food trucks, as well as frequently asked questions. And just to give like an example in here, this does say, disclaimer, this is just a draft, but this is where all of the field use would be. There's a way that I can block it out to kind of show who has what, right? So I think for us, the intent is, and after talking with Chris Cotta too, like there's going to be static info that'll live on the town's webpage, but they're going to be things that we want to be able to have connections through, I think, this website for, and anybody on recreation is welcome to have access to it, to add to it. You know, it's open on our end. So anyway, just wanted to give sort of an overview on it. That was it. Cool.
It looks really cool.
Yeah, it's a template that we'll build. I didn't have any other new business items. I didn't know if anybody else had anything in particular that they wanted to add under new business.
Stu, nothing to add under new business, but if you can still hear me well, I just thought I'd quickly circle back to that treasurer's report.
Sure.
So I'm just double checking now, and actually I had prepared a report for your last meeting in early January, and there have been 0 expenses since then. So our treasurer's report has no change from the January report.
Perfect. Thank you. To our friends from the town council, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We're near the tail end, but I did want to offer up, is there anything from a recreational standpoint that we should be aware of? Anything that's come up or anything you need from us?
Stu, I think you may know a little bit of this, but there will be some discussion on Monday night's agenda related to Harbor Commission requests around kayak places to put your kayak, to rent kayaks, or I'm not even sure if it's rent, but to have kayaks, dinghies, and the like available. They are suggesting the beaches, both at Grinnell's and down south. So when we had our agenda planning meeting today, we discussed the importance of having conversations with you guys, having conversations with open space, because there's also conversation about that area at Fogland. And so the agenda item is to discuss and possible referral to other committees for the Harbor Commission to have a conversation with you. And I don't even think Joe knows about that because he's not in those planning agendas.
Mike, were they talking about boat storage like they have down in Newport?
So it's kind of vague from what was on there.
Yeah.
But it sounds like racks that could be put up on the beach. And, one of my questions would be, who's going to manage it? Who's going to watch it?
Yep.
And obviously it's the beach areas, so you guys need to be okay with it too.
Yeah, those got to be careful. You got to have tags, boat tags, otherwise stuff sits down there for 10 years and then it becomes a big mess.
Yeah.
Well, and so we had a conversation a little bit earlier tonight about the space next to the bathhouse in Fogland and looking at how, as we were trying to potentially do some programming, looking at could we put containers in there? And so depending on the size of the space, it might be something where we could look at doing a container plus putting some storage racks in there for it. Again, I'd have to measure it out and see what's being asked, but I don't know. I think it's definitely worth a discussion.
Yeah, and the big thing was, they had some ideas that are probably good ideas, but there are other committees and commissions that it overlaps with. So.
Okay. Anything else that anybody has for tonight? All right. Hearing none, as always, good to see everybody. And could I entertain a motion to adjourn?
Make that motion to adjourn.
I've got a motion from Ed, and then I've got a second from Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, everybody.
Aye.
Hey, Dan, I'll be calling you.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, everybody.
Big food and music.
Yes.